First year I did 5 flips, just maxing out my credit cards. Second year I did 20 flips, same deal, maxing out my credit cards. My credit score during that time was in the 500s.
We're back in the saddle again for another React video. You guys love this, so we want to load you up.
Brian, I am so excited to see what the team has in store for us today. Let's dive right in.
I'm thinking about cashing in my 401k to buy real estate. What do you think?
100% you should do it. Get rid of your 401k as soon as possible.
Why do you
Oh
think
my
that?
gosh.
401ks are a scam, and I feel you would make
That's where the scam
1,000
is.
times more money if you invest in real estate.
If I'm somebody who has worked for my company for a really long time, let's say I have like $50,000 saved in my 401k. This is my only retirement. You think I should cash that out, take the hit on the taxes, and invest in
And the
real
penalty.
estate?
There's ways that you could take that money out and not pay taxes. There's like self-directed IRA companies that will help you use that money to go buy real estate.
Let's say I pull it out. I got 50 grand now. Where do I put it?
Nope.
I would invest it
you
into
don't have to
flipping
be
a house, because then that's the fastest way to double that 50K.
There's just a lot of things. It's a complexity that sounds great in the brochure, but when I've seen this in practice, it can be expensive. It can make you beholden to an organization that, you know, or a custodian that you don't love. And there's a lot of traps with the government, with the tax code and other policies that you need to be very aware of.
When you pull money out of your 401k, you have to pay ordinary income tax on that money, and if you're under 59 and a half, you also have to pay penalties. So if you have 50,000 in your 401k and you go to cash it out, you are not ending up with 50,000. You're ending up with 50,000 less the taxes, less the penalty. Now, I would argue if you're someone who's in the situation where all the money you have saved for retirement is $50,000, and you do not have the ability to save another $50,000 moving forward to be able to go buy real estate, then you are not at the place in your financial journey where you should be doing real estate. Because what I would tell this guys, hey, you've got $50,000 in a 401k, great. Let that money continue to grow and work for you. And while you're continuing to build up retirement assets, if you want to start saving for a real estate goal, save on the side and build up a down payment to go be able to buy that first house that potentially you may want to flip. But just because you buy a house with the intention of flipping it does not mean that you're going to automatically double your money. That's not the way that real estate works.
I'm noticing a trend here. There's a lot of faking it until you make it. But a lot of these people are they're downplaying the risk. They're on the razor's edge of failure here. There is a better way to do real estate early. I'm talking about like house hacking.
Sure.
Go find your first house. It's like a duplex, a quadplex. You're actually going to live in that house, get financing like it's your primary residence. That's an actual way. Otherwise, if you're doing all this stuff like flipping and you know, buying rental property and other things like that, wait until you have a financial foundation underneath you. If you skip the step, you're going to find out that you're going to get burned by the leveraged debt. There's a reason that you can make great rates of returns with levered debt, but it's also because there's lots of hazards, lots of risk. Don't skip the steps of building your financial foundation first.
First year I did 5 flips, just maxing out my credit cards. Second year I did 20 flips, same deal, maxing out my
goodness
credit cards.
gracious.
My credit score during that time was in the 500s. And I remember my friends were like, hey, why are you gonna keep your credit cards maxed out? Aren't you concerned that your credit's in the 500s? I'm like, what am I gonna get with credit? What's the point of credit? To get a good interest rate? I'm already buying properties. Am I gonna go finance a car? I just bought my car cash. What do I need good credit for? And people worry about the dumbest things. Anytime somebody's concerned about their credit and they're broke, I'm like, you are literally the dumbest person alive. It makes literally no sense to be worried about credit and you're broke. You have way bigger problems than your credit score.
People who borrow money excessively like that, I just shudder to think of what their interest rate is. Because like I actually was talking to someone who
And
was,
as a credit card, it doesn't even matter what is it, because the interest is going to be bad no matter what.
I didn't even know 15% car loans existed until somebody was showing me that they were trying to do a business idea with Turo and all these other things. And I was like, how do you ever turn a concept into a profitable concept if you're paying somebody 15, 20%? And he's talking about flips. I mean, by the way, if you're funding your house flipping new venture with credit cards, which charge you 20, 30%, just bless your heart.
You're doing it wrong.
Bless your heart.
Now, I will say there is one thing he said right there at the end that I think is worth noting and worth diving into. If you are someone who is, he used the word broke, but if you're someone who's at that stage of wealth building, you should not be focused on your credit score per se, because your credit score should be a symptom, a result of the behavior. Your goal should not be to have a good credit score. What should happen is your good behaviors naturally lead to getting a good credit score. You don't chase it, it becomes a side effect of the decisions that you're making. And I feel like so many people try to gamify, how do I maximize my credit score? That shouldn't be the name of the game. If you're doing the things you're supposed to do and you're using credit responsibly and you understand how credit works, then naturally you're going to have a good credit score.
My wife and I paid off our mortgage in our early 30s. And here's how you can pay off your house early too. You want to put down a strong down payment. 10, 20+% is the best. We put down 45% because we're crazy. Get a reasonable house. You don't
The team
need a
is mean
mansion.
for putting this in here.
We got a townhome that was reasonably priced, and we aggressively started attacking that mortgage. We made extra payments, and the way we got those extra payments, doing side hustles, we did no spend months, we were on a budget, we were cutting expenses, we were doing anything we could to create that margin to throw on top of that principal. That is how we paid off $165,000 in 26 months, and you want to get the right mortgage to do this. A 15-year fixed rate mortgage with a payment that's no more than a quarter of your take-home pay will set you up for success to pay off your house early.
We love us some George Cameron.
We love George.
I will tell you, I think George could have gotten in that townhouse with 3 to 5% down. He didn't have to put down 45%. That way he could load up his Roth, his employer plan, and everything else, because he's young.
Mm-hmm.
And and look, George, I love you. I know you and I will probably talk about this later. He, even with that decision, would still be a multimillionaire, because guess what? Buying a house in Franklin, Tennessee, before we had the runaway inflation, he would have had money there, and then he'd had all that great performance in the stock market in 2021. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, 2022, he'd have lost a little bit in the stock market, but then in 2023, he'd have made money, and he would have continued to make money off of that money, his army of dollar bills working for him. George is really good with money, does a lot of good things, but we're just a little different on that first house down payment, and we're even a little different on trying to pay off low interest debt before you're 45 years of age. There's get wealthy behaviors, and then there's stay wealthy behaviors. I'd argue somebody in their 20s and 30s, let's get you wealthy before you're paying off an interest rate that's less than what your cash earns.
Here's what I love. I love George's mindset. Everything he said, we completely agree with in terms of mindset. I want to live on less than I make. I want to make responsible decisions. I want to figure out how I can create additional income to pursue the goals that I have. Where we differ is simply in the method. He has a different method than we do, but it's the exact same mindset. We would have argued that there's a different way to approach low interest debt and low interest mortgages. But what's beautiful about it is, even the way George said it, with that mindset, in our opinion, it's not the optimized strategy, but it's still a strategy for him that's likely going to lead to long-term success.
My kids, they're not going to be able to afford a house in 13, 14, 15 years. Real estate is the perfect investment. I buy each of my daughters houses from time to time. They each have their own LLCs. I have the tenant paying the mortgage down on each of these. At some point in their life, these houses can pay for their college. I'm going to hand them a portfolio of real estate that makes them millionaires. They probably could not afford to get started like I can today.
You're going to give them a house that there's no way they could afford, because you bought it now and are just going to hand it over. It's a way for the next generation to not miss out on owning real estate.
It's videos like this.
Do that for you. 529 plans can't do that for your kids. You want to invest for your kids? Buy them real estate.
Can we all agree? Yeah, if you got rich parents, it gets a lot easier.
It does get a lot easier if your
So
parents
yeah, if you can go buy your kids a house, more power to you. It's going to be a lot easier.
Is that even what you should do? Is that even the best way to teach kids how to responsibly build wealth? Because what kind of world are we sending our kids into? Say, oh, these kids, they're not going to be able to afford a house. How about, you know what, child, I'm going to teach you the tools that are necessary so that you can go out and be successful in this world, so that no matter what the cost of housing is, no matter where it goes, you're going to be one of the people who's making the decisions necessary to put you in the situation where you are going to be able to buy the house. It's not you have to rest on the laurels that dad bought you on 20 years prior. That just seems like you're setting your kid up for failure, in my opinion.
Here's the thing. Families that can buy their kids houses or invest in their kids, you need to be making sure that you're creating children that turn into good adults. And the way we recommend that is having some skin in the game, meaning that when you let your children start working, actually prime the pump of their behavior towards building wealth by doing a dollar for dollar match as they do a custodial Roth IRA. How about their first car? Why don't you make them pay for half of that car so they start appreciating what is money worth? What does money do for you and what does it not do for you? If you just give your kids everything, because you know this same person's probably, because he said LLC, probably buying some cars in an LLC to give his kids the BMW, the paid for house. That is not the right way. We know from Millionaire Next Door and all kind of research out there, the biggest thing that wealthy people can do is screw your kids up by not creating scarcity in their life. That is not the right lesson. I wish, I could take those resources, point them in a different direction. I think you'll get a better result later in life.
We are going to have a real estate boom in 2024, starting January 3rd to August 30th. That is going to be when the most houses are sold in 2024. We may not sell another house after November. The Federal Reserve has already talked about reducing the interest rate 6 times next year. I don't care who the current sitting president is, the housing market, inflation, the cost of doing business, they are going to do everything that they can to get the perception that those things are under control. The reason that I say August the 30th is because September, October, you are going to see this onslaught of political advertisements. And anytime that you have all of that going into people's mind, the uncertainty makes them very nervous. And I think that people just typically in an election cycle are traditionally very slow. If you're thinking about selling your house in 2024, you need to get that house on the market sooner rather than later.
I bet you she's a real estate agent. I bet you she'd be happy to list it for you, probably.
I do tell people, and I even said this on a client call yesterday, do not make financial decisions based upon your politics. I've seen that. Now, look, there are a few things that I agree with. I think the Fed, there was an article yesterday that came out that one of the Fed members has stated they still see, because of the good inflation data that just came out, there's likely at least 3 interest rate drops in 2024. So that's not guaranteed. It's not assured, but it definitely shows that rates are going to drop.
She sure seemed awful confident.
Yeah, well, affordability has been an issue with housing. And I also know that inventory is still at all-time lows. So there probably are some things that are going to make real estate pricing go up.
She was so adamant that she knew, hey, this is what's going to happen, and this is what's going to happen, and this is what's going to happen. If we've learned anything about the financial markets, it is that they will make us look foolish just as soon as we know exactly what is going to happen. Now, we can assign probabilities, but even if you were to assign where you thought interest rates were going to end this year at, and you asked 100 different economists, you're probably going to get 100 different answers, and there's not going to be a general consensus because nobody knows exactly what is going to happen. So I agree with you, Brian. I would not go about making large, significant life decisions like selling a piece of real estate or buying a piece of real estate solely and exclusively because of what you think the political environment is going to bring this year. I do not think that's wise counsel to act upon.
Gen Z's big gamble. They're living with their parents to save money, but it's going to cost them big time. I don't know if I agree with that. So first and foremost, in the US, the percentage of young adults living with their parents have climbed 87% over the past 2 decades, according to the US Census Bureau. Now more than half of 18 to 24-year-olds in America are living with their parents. And what's interesting about that, in 1940, at the tail end of the Great Depression, 48% of 18 to 29-year-olds lived with their parents, a rate that hadn't been surpassed until 2020. And you wonder why we're calling this the silent depression. So why are so many Gen Zers living at home? It's because the average American renter is spending more than 30% of their income on rent. I've seen 40, 50% depending on where you live. If you can stay home and you have a good relationship with your parents and you're going to live rent free, go work your 40, 50 hour a week job, save that money so you can get a good head start in life. If you're a millennial and you have to move back in with your parents for a few years, make it count, pay off your debt, get back on your feet. It's okay. Now, if you don't have a good relationship with your parents, maybe you should look at moving in with friends or finding like-minded individuals so you can have that good energy around you. But splitting the cost of living, getting that house burdened down for yourself is going to give you a head start.
See, I love this. This is I call this the untalked about house hack. No one wants to talk about this one. If you are a young person and you have parents to where you're not going to exploit the generosity, but if you can move back home and you're not counting on your parents for economic outpatient care, maybe you can help with the utilities, maybe you can help with the bills or whatever, but it's a mechanism where you can save money to be able to build up that down payment or be able to move or be able to whatever that thing is. That is a very interesting and unique way to house hack that I think a lot of people don't think about but you want to make sure that you're not doing it to the detriment of your parents' financial situation.
The biggest thing is we always talk about it's not the latte effect, it's the Lambo effect, or it's the neighborhood effect. So if your car payments, if your housing are eating up all of your financial resources so you can't actually save and invest for the future, you'll never get ahead. So what he's just saying is if you can watch where your money's going for housing, and if that is 30% plus, I mean, that is a
big
huge
savings.
amount of money. That's the difference between you and 7 figures. The only caveat or asterisk I would put next to this is know where your exit point is, though, because there is too much of a good thing. I want you at some point to have an understanding of where is your moment of independence. So nothing wrong with using the leg up of staying at home or taking on multiple roommates, but just kind of know what the transition looks like for you in the journey. It's like all things. Begin with the end in mind.
Here's why you should buy an Airbnb out of state. Number one being
Oh, yeah, out of state.
vacation home for yourself, so you just block off the dates that you want to stay there, and then it's like a 2-for-1.
Easy.
This, you can hire a management company to take care of everything for you.
That piece of
Super
cake.
passive investment. You just provide the funds, pay your bills, and then the management company handles everything else, including licensing. Now, the reason why Florida specifically is so popular for Airbnbs is because South Florida doesn't have seasons. You can rent them out all year round. You don't have to close them up like you do in other states and lose income. It's consistent monthly income.
That is one county commission from failure. One county commission meeting from failure because, short-term rentals, it's not like the local governments have loved that. And then let me tell you another thing I know about rental property. A hack is not try to buy something as far away from where you live because you need to have the ability to go check it out.
Yep.
You need to be able to go look at it.
She said you're going to use it as a vacation. I'm going to block off all the dates that you might want to be. Well, if you're doing that, now you're actually eating. The best times to go stay at your vacation property for you are probably going to be the best times that the rest of the world would want to go stay at your vacation property. So naturally, you're in conflict of actually being able to turn this thing into a reasonable investment opportunity.
And then the management company is going to take their cut, which more than likely, when you take into account the depreciation, when you take in the management company, and you think about the repairs and maintenance, because yes, with short-term rentals, you are going to have more wear and tear on the property. I just think that this is, once again, faking it until you're making it. It's more aspirational than it is actually going to be lucrative. And just going down to Florida for my own family, we've gone, like Orlando specifically, there are entire communities who are trying to appeal to these aspirational people, and they've actually created their own little system to sell you your wannabe real estate entrepreneur lifestyle. Just be careful, because just because you saw something on social media and just because there's a business down in Florida that will sell you a condo that lets you then do short-term rentals doesn't mean that you're actually living that entrepreneur passive real estate life. Just there's more to it than what's in the brochure. I didn't see what it was pointing at beforehand. That's a fancy, look at it. That's a good looking car, good looking house.
When you take the chance to go after your dreams,
he's making it
you
look like
take
it's
the
his.
risk. Sure, you may fail, but what if you fly? What if you succeed? What if you do greater than you could have ever?
It's not his.
Did you get the premise of the video? It was a house for sale, and he was making it look like this was his motivational video of all the stuff that he was able to accomplish. But realistically, it wasn't his. It's not his house, not his car. It's just faking. And I think it's suggesting that most of the stuff we see out there on social media literally is people faking like they have it all figured out and their life looks amazing, when really it's all pretend, it's all made up.
I just saw on what was formerly known as Twitter a savage community notes.
Okay.
Somebody, an influencer, had posted a picture of this beautiful house with a Lamborghini in front and saying it was theirs. And then there was a community notes down there with the address showing that this building was actually it's for rent. It was not a closing. So I'm telling you, there are so many fakers out there. Remember, wealth is actually usually silent. It sits on your net worth statement. It's not loud and proud like all the influencers have you believe. So don't fall into the trap. Don't fall into that green with envy that I want to live that lifestyle. More than likely, they're faking it. They're not actual in the reality of success.
Building wealth is incredibly simple, but it's not easy. But if you can employ simple concepts like exercising discipline, saving a little bit of money, doing that over a long time, you can build wealth. And we're going to keep loading you up with that information. If you've not checked out all the resources on our website, go to moneyguy.com/resources and check out all the stuff we have there that will hopefully help you do money better.
Money Guy team, out.